Hello, everybody. Sorry, I didn't realize it was recording. Welcome back. It is the FIDE World Cup. It is the semifinals. It is the first game of the semifinals here, and there are storylines all over the place. Three of these men will make it to the FIDE candidates. One will not. They've all got two chances. If they win their game, the two finalists are guaranteed to make it to the FIDE candidates, but of course we'll fight it out to see who wins the World Cup. The two losers will have one final chance in the third place match, where they are not just fighting for bragging rights, but for qualification for the candidates. The first match is very interesting, and it's very heartwarming as well. Nodirbek, Yakubboev, and Yakubboev Sindarov, two friends, two countrymen facing each other in the semi-finals. You could see a little bit of emotion between the two as they were playing effectively their childhood friend in such an important match. We had d4 from Nodirbek, d5, c4, e6, and a queen's gambit declined, which became a triangle defense or a semi-slav. We had the takes, queen takes, and now b5, which looks weakening because this becomes a bit weak, but it is actually quite well-known opening theory up until this point. You put the bishop forward, you allow e4, kick the knight out to the edge of the board, queen comes forward, threatening discoveries, threatening the knight, but you can just play b3, c5, check, we get this early queen trade, the bishop blocks, and we get to this position, or rather this position, and everybody is okay. And now you've got choices to make. Do you take this and give up this? What do you do? Nodirbek has spent some time here. Sindarov obviously prepped this line quite well. So Nodirbek decides to take. We get knight takes, takes, and takes. And now bishop to d2. You might say, why not put the bishop here? Well, it kind of has no future because you're staring into your own pawn and you're not going to be able to really open it unless black opens it for you. And even though they're childhood best friends, I don't think that Yakubboev Sindarov is going to be that accommodating. So we'll play bishop to d2, long castles, rook c1, which looks like it just straight up wins material now because you're attacking the bishop and attacking the knight, which is, pinned to the king, which you just put there, but you can play rook d5, which is a very important move. Now we offer a bishop trade, which we get, and now the king slides out the way. Short castles. You might ask why this isn't hanging. Well, it kind of is, but you first had to get the king out the way because the knight was pinned. We first play h6. The rook slides up to c4. And now we have to play a5. And we've made it to an endgame. We double the rooks, so I have to now play rook to c8. And now I can play king to f2. And everything has flown well. They've both spent some time getting here. But there's not much to say. Rook to d8 defends the rook, so you can move the knight. We repeat. You play h4, rook c7, h5, now limiting the mobility of the black pawn structure. These pawns are all frozen, and there's not really much you can move here. White has this, but that doesn't really do much, and once I drop back, you've got nothing. So we've got rook d7, you swing your rook around to g4, but I can just play f6. Everything's defended. Takes, takes, and now you play rook c7, and the game ends here on move 30 with rook to g7, and a draw offer, which is accepted, which is very bold. Nodirbek Yakubboev was down to a minute 16 seconds, but I think they get extra time on move 40, so would have still had to make 10 moves, but it wouldn't have been hard. He would have taken, and this endgame plays itself. The players played at 99% accuracy up until this point. Didn't really push hard. They're probably quite happy to go to Armageddon. Not Armageddon, but to tiebreaks. So let's check in then on the other semi-final matchup, which hopefully, in terms of a viewer perspective, was a much more engaging game. And, of course, I'm recording this very late. That's just because I had lots of things to do. Oh my gosh, why is it broken? Anyway, Andrey Esipenko versus Wei Yi. Yeah, okay. Andrey Esipenko versus Wei Yi. Wei Yi's got the white pieces in game 1, e4, e6, and we get a French defense from Esipenko, knight to c3, the classical. Now, if you've followed any of my videos lately, you know I'm a big fan of the Winawa. I just think it's a really good weapon for black, but we get takes, knight takes, and now knight d7 to allow knight to f6. You don't want to damage and get the queen out. Knight takes, and now bishop to d3. We now get c5, bishop to e3, queen c7, and now queen e2, a6, h4. And this is the thing. White in the French wants to go this way and attack on the king side. And black is pretty happy and pretty flexible. That's why I'm a big fan of the French of late. Because, sorry, I'm slightly distracted. There's the Ashes going on at the moment. It's fantastic. I'm also a big cricket fan as well as a chess fan. But we're going to focus on the rest of this recap. Black is pretty flexible because if white has committed early to the king side, you can go this way and fight here. But in most likelihood, because of the way that black has played this, they will be playing something like bishop to e7 and short castles. And white, if they're a psychopath, will go long castles. So we get knight d5, which targets the dark squared bishop, trying to get 2 bishops for black. White says, fine, I'm going to short castle like a psychopath. Bishop to d7, because you don't have to take this right at this moment. King b1, and now I can grab it. Before you move it, you could have gone back to d2, for example. Now we play f6, because I might just play king f7. I might just do that, and also become a psychopath. g4, long castles. Nothing interesting happening here. They have both indicated that they would like to fight on the side, and as fourth, they've shuffled their kings to the opposite side of the board, and both of them are now on the same side, and probably the sting of the game has been taken out. g4. Now there's no king there, but you can still make a tactical breakthrough. King b8. Okay. Rook h f1. Bishop to c8, just getting out the way because the knight might come in. This might get taken. Things might start to open up just a wee bit. Takes, and now c3, securing this. There can be various tactics at various points. Now rook to g8, just seizing the open file. Knight drops back, looks silly, but you're going this way, potentially to one of these squares to put pressure, to have targets all over the board. Will be a very powerful knight there on e5, so I played f5 as my 8 o'clock alarm goes off. Knight to b3 now, looking to target this, so you can push it forward, but that's a waste of a move because I just take. So we get rook to g4. Yeah, looks silly, because you're like, wait, isn't this just hanging? It is, and it isn't, because now I can play h5. And that's a problem for you. I've isolated your h4 pawn, and I'm going to win it. And if you don't believe me, I will. So, as whites, you've got to be very careful. So that's why white plays h5. Because now you can go here, and it's actually easier to defend this pawn on h5 than on h4. So we get rook to h4, trying to attack the pawn. And now I can take there. Bishop takes, pawn takes, and now queen takes. And now white's left themselves a precarious situation because these 2 pawns are weak. Now, you wouldn't say these are the strongest black pawns you've ever seen in your life, but they're significantly stronger and they can prove a decisive advantage. Because you've got this 2-on-1 here, and this is forever a threat. So you have 2 things to monitor. You've got these coming down and this weakness as white. You've got to monitor both. So we get rook to f4, offering a rook trade, which would be very beneficial, just by the way. This is beneficial for white, because now my queen opens up, this pawn becomes backwards, and if, for example, you want to play something like rook here, there are various points, not right away, that there's sacrifices on this. But while the queen defends that square, it's not possible. So rook trade very beneficial for white, so for that reason, we get rook to h3. Now rook to d4, offering again a rook trade, but I can go rook to g8. Now e4, important. Do you push? Do you take? Taking is probably bad, but we take. Queen takes. Now I'm threatening this, and I've got eyes on this, and also subtly eyes on this at some points. Queen takes h5 though. Now black has 2 passed pawns, but a weakened king. Bishop takes a6. Wei Yi knew it was coming. He knew the queen would take. He knew this would be a problem. Bishop takes a6 out of nowhere. And when I say out of nowhere, he spent 4 minutes on it. The thing is, you can't take. You cannot take this bishop. See the eval just drop up because you've got rook before check. And again, the king can't go into the corner because of the queen. So you've got to play something like queen b5. You've got to sack the queen. Because king c7, king c7, king a7 are both mate in 2. So you have to sack the queen. And now I would just play probably queen e5 first, is cleaner. King a7, and then now rook takes b5, pawn takes b5, and queen c7 check, probably. And white just completely wins and dominates. The other rook will swing in and help you mate this king very promptly. So you cannot take that bishop. So Wei Yi gets his pawn back. So we get e5, and now rook d8. Again, can't take the bishop. We get this trade, and now the king slides over. We bring the bishop back, queen a4. Sacking the bishop again, although this is hanging, and there's probably a mate coming. B takes a6, no mate. I sack the rook. Wei Yi sacks all of his pieces, because after king b6, it's a draw. All of these beautiful black pieces over here, ready to come down the board and attack the king, but it's perpetual check. Queen d6. If you continue to run forward, you get mated, just with these pawns helping the queen. So you have to play king b5 is probably the highest you can go. Queen d5. And now you have to go back to b6. If you continue to run forward, you get mated. I mean, queen c6 first, probably. Can't go here, can't go here, can't go here. Has to come here, and then mate. So Wei Yi finds a way to sacrifice everything he owns from this position when it was looking devastating. Just sacrifices everything he owns. The rook, the bishop, and not quite the queen. But trades off a rook, sacrifices a rook, and sacrifices a bishop, and finds a draw. So you could argue he survives. And both semifinals are still alive. Game 2, very imminent when this is coming out. Cheers.